For over 400 years, they've developed their own mysterious traditions. For over 400 years, they've had a strict code of honor and unparalleled standards of respect. For over 400 years, they have terrorized the streets of Japan. Now, they want to control the city of Los Angeles. Determined to leave their mark in blood. Dolph Lundgren, Brandon Lee. Showdown in Little Tokyo.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
It was a defensive exercise.
Yeah, best defense is a good offense. Or is it the other way around?
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Secret Defenders, where I task my guests to defend their favourite movies that are underrated, infamous, or obscure. And I have a guest today who has the biggest dick I've ever seen on a man. It's Dan Keatis. He's back for Yakuza Month, and he's bringing us a showdown in Little Tokyo.
Well, thanks. I don't know what to say.
I think that's it. Just gingerly accept that compliment, and
I think we should. The right thing to do is to oil up our torsos and
wrestle
and get ourselves on an electrocution rack and just watch our six-packs tense.
Oh my god, that'd be a dream. That'd be a homoerotic dream.
Because we're about to talk about a film that is deeply homoerotic, despite one of the main characters being a practicing heterosexual. It is deeply homoerotic.
Definitely. I mean, it's pure 90s. Uzis and homoeroticism. You can't beat it. Just slam those two together and you've got a macho action flick.
It has Uzis and oozing of homoeroticism.
Well, welcome back, Dan. I know it's been a while.
It has. Thanks for having me back on Prattle World.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you for supplying Largo, which will be responsible for any slurring I do.
I just slur all the time, even without the alcohol. So, but yeah, we are here to talk Showdown in Little Tokyo, which is the finale to my Yakuza month of Japanese-related organised crime. Again, I'm not celebrating the actual crime or being part of Yakuza. I'm not going yay mafia stuff. It is purely the genre and its feature, the Yakuza featuring in fictional genre stuff. I didn't need to make that comment because somebody on the RoboCop stream I did with the attention-seeking geek seemed to think I was celebrating the mafia, and that is not the case.
I think it's perfectly fine to separate the aesthetics of a trope from the moral implication. Like, I remember watching an interview with Tarantino after Reservoir Dogs came out, and he was saying that like me liking violent films is a purely aesthetic thing. It's not. There's no moral connection there for me. It's like me saying I like violent films is no different than you saying you like westerns or you like musicals.
Yeah.
So or you like slapstick. So I think.
We can separate the two.
We can, yeah, and some of the best films ever made are crime,
related
of some culture,
Yeah, so, true.
If you, I mean, crime is the essence of crime is conflict, and if you remove conflict from narrative, then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah,
or you're gonna have something incredibly tepid.
Yes, but I mean, Showdown in Little Tokyo is not tepid in the least.
It's not. No, it's a lot of things. But tepid is not one of them.
Tepid is not one of them. So shall we start by, as always, I always ask the guest to describe the plot of the film that we talk about, or comic. So would you like to try and describe the plot as best you can for Showdown in Little Tokyo.
Okay, so there is this white dude who is the best Japanese person ever. And he's played by the white savioriest of white saviors, Dolph Lundgren. And he meets a half Japanese man who is so much worse at being Japanese than he is. He like berates him at every possible opportunity. And they're tracking down this Yakuza drug dealer guy from Japan who killed the main character, who is Chris Kenner, played by Dolph Lundgren. And all action heroes should be called Chris. Not played by people called Chris, as is very much on vogue at the minute. But
oh yes, a lot of good Chris's.
They should just be called Chris, because Chris is clearly the most manly of names.
and clearly, he's called Kenner because he looks like an action figure.
And even though that line about having the biggest dick you've ever seen on a man, like, it wouldn't surprise me if like Dolph Lundgren dropped his pants in this film and it was just completely like Ken doll smooth, because he's so smooth and oily and hairless everywhere except his head. Obviously, he has.
Of course, he has a lot more hair than I do. Anyway.
And he is the most angular human being I've ever seen. He has just the most incredible jawline. It's
all right angles. Everywhere.
And because I haven't seen this film since I was about 15, 16, and I used to watch it because I was very deep into martial arts at the time. I'm going on a massive tangent, but you should be used to that by now.
Yeah, well, welcome to the show. This is what we do, is tangents.
But because I was doing a lot of martial arts at the time, I was deep into martial arts films, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be I basically wanted to be Scott Adkins. But I was nowhere. I have never at any point in my life been as talented as he is. But yeah, I wanted to do like action films, and I was always like, why are there no British martial arts films?
Yeah.
Why is it all like Cockney gangsters and heroin addicts?
Because that's England.
Yeah.
That's all we have. That's it. That's our main export.
But I remember vividly watching this film, having taped it from the TV, which is what we did in the early 90s. And I remember just watching it and going over the fights and this and Rapid Fire, which is another Brandon Lee film. I sort of watched obsessively, and it's only like going back to it now that you realise both, like, wow, they were both really, really handsome men, like incredibly handsome men, and obviously Tia Carrera's in it as well, who is stunning,
gorgeous.
But yeah, I was like, wow, these dudes look good. And the other thing I've noticed is they're terrible, like even by sort of 80s, 90s action movie standards, they're terrible police officers. Yeah. Like, to paraphrase Hot Fuzz, I don't know how you could like rack up that level of carnage and mayhem and not have a considerable amount of paperwork to file afterwards. But the plot. So that's pretty much it. I mean, the elegance in this film is in its simplicity, and it's only 78 minutes long anyway, so you don't really have an awful lot of time for much else. But basically, the Japanese white guy fights the Japanese guy.
He's a Japanese white guy technically, who's played by a Chinese white guy. Like, it's a mixed race. So Brandon Lee's mixed race, Chinese and white descent, and he's playing a guy of Japanese and white descent, which is probably not the most culturally sensitive thing to put on film.
Oh, sorry, by the Japanese guy, I meant Cary.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
sorry. I always get this wrong.
Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa, I'm going to say. We'll say that. Could be pronouncing it wrong.
Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa.
There we go.
Shang Tsung.
Shang Tsung, yeah. If you see Mortal Kombat, it's Shang Tsung.
So from now on, I'm going to be referring to him as Shang Tsung. If that's insensitive, it's just because I'm an idiot, not because I don't appreciate the differences in Chinese and Japanese cultures. Thank you.
Yes, no worries.
So yeah, he fights Shang Tsung. It culminates with Kendall Kenner fighting Japanese Yakuza man with swords, which they take off passing samurai. I wish I was joking, but that's actually what happens. Who just happen to be rising back on horseback.
I think they call it. It's during a parade, and I think it's called. I think Yoshida, who is played by Shang Tsung.
Yes.
That's the character he plays. And I think he calls it the Spring Moon Festival. I'm not sure if that's a real thing or not for Japanese culture. I could be wrong.
I mean, a better podcast would research this, but
Probably.
we're just going to assume that it is a thing.
You know what? You keep talking. I'll Google it.
Okay, so yeah, and it culminates in a sword fight with two presumably blunt katanas, but because Dolph Lundgren has superhuman strength, which we see multiple times, and we'll talk about his many feats of superhuman strength in this film. That don't just border on the physically impossible. The line of physical possibility is a dot to him. And he basically puts this blunt sword through him, and it's that dodgy thing where it comes out a completely different angle on the other side, but they try and cut round it with clever editing so you don't notice.
Well, spoilers. First of all.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a 90s action film. The bad guy dies at the end.
Yeah, it's a shocker.
There are no post-credit scenes here, kids.
No, it's not your universe building. It's not your Snyderverses. It's not your MCUs. It is, if anything, death by Catherine wheel that Yoshida gets right at the end.
And there's so many people just standing around watching that shit.
Yeah, they're loving it.
This guy just impaled on a giant spinny firework thing, and he just catches fire and he's screaming in agony. Everyone's just like, whoa, awesome. And then they all bow to the white dude, which would not fly today.
No, this is.
I imagine.
Yeah, this is probably not your woke culture. Your 2020 in the 2021 lens is probably not as culturally sensitive as it could have been.
Yeah, and there are a lot of Chinese and Filipino people playing Japanese people. I don't like, as a white dude, I'm just going to back up and say I don't know how appropriate it is to be offended about that.
Sure, yeah.
My fiance is half Vietnamese, and she doesn't appear to be. She's not all that bothered by it. What she said to me is like, it's like English people playing Scottish people. It's not really a thing.
That's not really a. Yeah.
However, I would not wish to speak for anyone because I'm straight and white and in my 30s. So I'm like, everything is
same
for
here.
me.
Same here. Yeah. so we already get a lot.
I'm just going to back away from it.
We're the Dolph Lundgren in this situation.
I mean,
to a
wish.
degree. Yeah, true. But yes, there was definitely, like you said, he's the most Japanese of Japanese men and shows up the Japanese men. And again, it's almost a little bit like when we watched. Do you remember when we did Nerdify, the podcast that you hosted, and we did Iron Fist?
Yes.
And Iron Fist was the best white guy at being the best martial artist. Kind of thing.
Except that he didn't bother to turn up for the training, so they just cut around him and he just waved his arms around him.
Apparently so, as the recent stunt choreographer revealed without naming names, but kind of said, that wasn't really how we do things. But yeah, it's one of those. But we've got Shang-Chi now, so
yes.
Eyes off that. Eyes on Shang-Chi.
Which, I know you've not seen it, but which is excellent and transcendent in so many ways.
Wow, really?
And it's I say this about everything, but it's top tier MCU for me. Absolutely. I'm very not everything's been, one of my damn tangents.
Here we go.
Not everything's 100% worked for me. Falcon and Winter Soldier didn't 100% work for me. WandaVision.
Yeah.
Like 70% of WandaVision was amazing for me, and then the other 30% was a bit.
Loki wasn't a sell for me.
I have only seen 2 episodes of Loki. It is one of the things I am going to get around to.
Yeah.
But for me, Shang-Chi is top tier for me.
Great. Well, I'm hopefully I might because I've been meaning to see it all this week, but there's things have been getting in the way. But I think maybe Sunday I'll go and partake in Shang-Chi because it does look really good. But Showdown in Little Tokyo.
We're supposed to
fleetingly talk about. I know we'll fleetingly talk about that fleeting film because it's barely feature length.
Well, yeah, and that's something I only found out about today because we watched some documentaries about it in like YouTube retrospectives. So Warner Brothers weren't happy with the director's cut. and cut it to shreds. I can't believe Warner Brothers would do such a thing. That is just so off-brand for them.
No, they're usually so sensitive about the directors. And
So basically, hashtag release the Mark L. Lester cut.
Yes.
I'm going to bang that drum on Twitter until my fingers bleed now.
If that footage exists, I want to see it.
Well, from what I understand, it does look like we missed some really good stuff. I believe you've actually made notes about this.
Yes, I do.
You've prepared like a normal person. I've just turned up, ate pizza, drank lager, and said words.
So I did look up the Spring Moon Festival. It seems to be more of a Chinese culture thing.
Of course it does.
Than a Japanese culture thing.
Which is very, very on brand for this film.
Yeah, probably. Cultural mixing and insensitivity. But yes, I did make a note of some of the things that were
Because they're clearly samurai in samurai armor.
Yes.
With katanas.
Yes. So clearly Chinese. No. Jesus. But the editor, Michael Elliott, this is totally off IMDb. So he said the scenes that were cut included a different introduction to Kenner, which is Dolph Lundgren's character, if we haven't gone over that, and his former partner, Yasuto. So,
Oh, that's right, because his partner died, and obviously because it's a buddy cop film, he's viewed as a reckless loose cannon by the higher ups, and no one wants to work with him until he is accosted by Yakuza and it ends up being a shootout, and then he meets his new partner Johnny Murata, played by the late great Brandon Lee, and then fighting and mistaken identities and
it's the Marvel team up, isn't it? It's the Marvel team up.
Yeah.
It's the classic, like, heroes have a misunderstanding, then they realise they're on the same team, then they get together. But yeah, so
now I really want an alternative cut of Avengers Endgame where Tony Stark says to Steve Rogers that he's got the biggest dick he's ever seen on a map. I don't care how much money you have to pay Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans.
Well, I mean, he's a super soldier, so I'm assuming he has a super soldier, if you know what I mean.
Excellent. This podcast has officially peaked.
Yeah, this is it. It's not going to get any better now. It's all downhill. So there was more of the Nelson character, which I think is the commissioner, kind of a boss type character, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to go with that. I mean, we could again do more research, but why not? We're here now. Played by Ernie Lively, so look up your IMDb, but I'm pretty sure that's him. More dramatic scenes between Lundgren and Lee, and a scene after the opening gunfight at the underground boxing match, or kickboxing match, where Ken is chewed out by his superiors for all the mayhem he has caused, which is just this movie. Pure
I mean, there is so much mayhem.
mayhem.
They are not procedurally accurate in this film. I mean, there's a bit at the end where Brandon Lee's character knocks a guy into a vat of flammable liquid and then drops a lighter in, like blowing up the whole place, and obviously killing him horribly.
Almost killing Brandon Lee himself,
Which,
and Kenner, and Dolph Lundgren in that
which
film.
might be considered excessive force. By the politically correct lobby.
Maybe that's a better title for it. Excessive Force. Who knows? Apparently it was going to be called The Yakuza. That was the original title. But then they settled on... but they thought that felt a bit dark or a bit grim. Which, this film, it kind of is. There is a lot of, like, really dark, violent, beheadings and severing of arms and things. A lot of blood and violence. And the tone of it is very much like... almost like a PG-13 type film.
It's kind of at odds with itself, really, isn't it? I mean, and finding out that it was originally meant to be a more darker and serious film, and then Mark Lester, who directed Commando, got his hands on it, and it became much more sort of like self-aware and tongue-in-cheek. Like, it's Commando.
Yeah.
What is some Steen Bennett?
He's dead tired.
Oh, man. Oh, fuck me, what a film.
I seem to mention that in almost every podcast or YouTube video I've done recently.
That is the very definition of they don't make them like that anymore. because there is nothing like that in the current milieu,
and you'll never find it again. Never find that again, for better or for worse. They don't make them like Commando.
I mean, yeah,
but yeah, it just seems really odd because there is this kind of like jokey kind of like there's a lot of slapsticky kind of like back and forth and kind of banter and stuff, and again the kind of homoeroticism as well, that kind of jokey homoeroticism, and then all of a sudden it'll just have a scene where it's just like, oh, that's someone who's addicted to drugs having their head cut off while being molested.
Yeah, well, raped.
Let's go for it. Yeah, let's call it what it is. Yeah, sure.
And and again, like many films of that era, women are not generally well represented. There's the coroner, played by, as you mentioned, Will Smith's mum in Fresh Prince.
Yeah, Fresh Prince's mum,
who is really kind of the only character with agency in the film, which is a bit
And you see her for all of 2 minutes. Really, she's the coroner, and she mentions that that the lady in question was beheaded. They find the body, and they said she would have been dead in 2 hours because she's been ingesting ice, which is apparently popular in Japan. I don't know if that's true, but I know in the early 90s there was this worry about ice, and it was a drug that never really kind of picked up. It was never really as popular as the worry about it would be.
Is it not like crystal meth, or is it?
I mean,
crystal meth?
I think it was a form of crystal meth, but I think at the time it was not like, because I know that the writer of Captain America wrote a story called Streets of Poison.
Yes,
and his idea was to kind of warn people about this drug and to almost like a PSA in a way, but not very bad. It's actually a really good story by Mark Grunwald, who is very influential in a lot of the Marvel TV shows at the moment. I did a Facebook post about it as well. But he basically has Cap accidentally ingest ice, sends him mad, goes on a mental kind of rampage, and then he has to have the super soldier serum removed from him because it's like stuck on it or something. Okay. Science. That's science. That's how it works.
Yeah. It's like bonded to it.
Yeah, sure. So he has to have it removed from his body. So he's like, will I be a good enough Captain America without having the super soldier serum? And he is, funnily enough, because he's trained that much over the years.
Yeah.
And it's great. You've got like Black Widow versus Diamondback. You've got Daredevil versus Captain America. You've got Bullseye versus Crossbones. And then the finale is the Kingpin versus the Red Skull.
It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty sick for a 90s comic. But yeah, so it was like, drugs are bad.
Right.
But there's a lot of entertainment here to be had anyway. While you're here, while we've got you, here's a message. But yeah, that's the only other time I've heard mention of it as ice. I think it's just a nickname for crystal meth anyway.
Yeah.
But I think in the early 90s it didn't pick up as much as people predicted it would.
Yeah.
But I think again later on, obviously Breaking Bad and all that, I think crystal meth has found its audience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And there's the whole thing about how the front is that he owns the brewery, and so they put all these drugs in beer, and they've just got this conveyor belt of drugs, which I'm sure is perfectly normal.
Yeah, of course. In a brewery.
Just install this random conveyor belt, and there'll be no inspections whatsoever.
I bet if you went to Foster's or Carling, they would have a big...
There's just a conveyor belt that's not being used at all, and just no one wants to talk about it. Yeah.
Shh. No, not right now. We're not going to talk about that. But that's for the nighttime staff. That's for the night staff.
Do you want to hear a Dan tangent?
Yes, please.
So, you know I've been married and divorced, right?
Yeah.
So this was like 2009, early 2009. I went on my stag do in Bremen, which is where there is a big Beck's brewery.
Oh, okay.
And apparently they like are meant to have an amazing like brewery tour, like, you know, Willy Wonka of beer kind of tour. And we very hungover dragged ourselves to this tour. And it turned out we'd missed it, basically.
Oh.
And it was like, you know, the episode of The Simpsons where Bart goes to like the offices of Mad Magazine and he gets turned away and he's just in this really sterile office, and then a door swings open, there's like crazy fun being had. It was exactly like that. We got told basically to fuck off in this really sterile we can fuck off to anywhere except the gift shop. And we were in this really sterile office, and then we just heard this door just swung open. There was just the sounds of raucous laughter and partying on the other side.
No, I can't. I've never been to a Beck's brewery, but that does sound good. I do like Beck's.
So yeah, that's just a little insight into my tortured life,
Sad and troubled life.
So yeah, Showdown in Little Tokyo is a film that we're talking about.
We are. We're trying to.
Yeah.
But yes.
I'm interested to know how much editing is going to go on here because quite a lot of this is quite extraneous.
We'll see. We'll certainly see how much editing I do. But I think it should be fine. Here's an interesting fact about me. My sister apparently loves this film so much she can quote it.
No way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
She said how much I watched it last year for the first time because I was like, well, now I know I'm doing a Yakuza month because all the fans voted for it.
Yeah.
All the Prattalion voted for it. So I was like, well, I've got to do my research. So this was actually one of the films I watched, and I said that I was watching it, and she quoted it, and I think it was probably the penis line.
That is the one that seems to endure, and it's incredible actually. I didn't know how much of a cult following this film had, and it's really edifying because it was one that as a teenager I really, really gravitated to.
Yeah, I that line as well for what we know was re-edited. So in some versions I've heard it was supposed to be that's the biggest dick I've ever seen on a white man, and then in other versions I've just heard that's the biggest dick I've ever seen, and then for some reason they've got man at the end. So I don't know if because it's kind of hinted or implied that maybe Brandon Lee's character is not necessarily straight.
Yeah,
maybe. I think there seems to be a bit of there's a lot of these kind of what's the one I'm thinking of? Hard Boiled. There's a lot of kind of homoeroticism in that.
Yeah.
But I think this is the most apparent homoeroticism I've seen in a proper macho late 80s, early 90s action flick. But I don't know if you feel the same way, or maybe it's more of a bromance.
If they were to please do Hollywood people, if you're listening, which I can't imagine any reason why you wouldn't be, if you're looking for something to remake,
yes.
And you always are, let's be honest.
The ideas of the well is run dry.
Remake Showdown in Little Tokyo and make Johnny Murata an out gay character, because he does seem to be interested in women, because there's a bit where they go into a nightclub and there's people eating sushi off naked women, and he's like, well, let's go and eat sushi off those naked chicks. Which is an actual line in the film. That was the 90s, folks. But he does seem very interested in Kenna and very disappointed when he hooks up with Tia Carrere's character.
He does.
So by all means, give us a gay action hero in a buddy cop film. Why the fuck not?
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done it before. Really, I'm surprised even at this point, that the buddy action cop genre is not run that dry that they've gone straight guy, gay guy as a buddy cop thing. I'm not sure why, but there you are. But I absolutely would love to see that. But I love
drag that into 5 seasons of X-Files-esque will they, won't they?
Ooh,
is he a bit curious?
Yeah. Does he like women as well?
Yeah.
So there is a bit of that kind of I think you can read it however you want to read it. If you want to read it that he's because they don't really obviously a lot of scenes were cut we've talked about, so you don't really get as much of a kind of I don't like you, I don't trust you.
No, they do seem after that initial fracas, they do seem to bond pretty quickly, and I really like that actually. There's a bit of obviously he gives him a lot of shit about not being Japanese enough. Fine, and there's a whole thing about there's a scene where he says, when did you start training? And Brandon Lee's character's like, since I was 4. And they said, you should have started earlier, that would have helped your form. And it's like, really bitch? And he says, I was 4. There's nothing wrong with my form.
In a weird way, I kind of like that they kind of flip it. That the Dutch, massive monster of a man is so ingrained with Japanese culture, speaks Japanese, knows the martial arts and stuff. There's something I kind of, obviously it's problematic, but there's something I quite like that they kind of flip the obvious scripts. There's this stoic, quiet hero.
Yeah.
And then you have the kind of fast-talking, jokey, kind of, half Japanese guy who you would expect to be the stoic, kind of very Tao, that sort of thing.
Because that was, I mean, if you go back to like the 70s stuff and the David Carradine, who was white.
Yeah.
Wait, is he still alive?
No, he died.
No, yeah.
It was erotic asphyxiation he did. Autoerotic asphyxiation.
No, he went doing what he loved.
Yeah.
So so it's that whole thing of like the Eastern mystic kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like it. It's kind of antithetical to that. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of, at the time, those were the stereotypes.
Yeah.
That was the problematic stuff.
And interestingly, Brandon Lee was in the Kung Fu pilot / feature where he fought David Carradine, and it's really awkward because Brandon Lee can actually do martial arts and David Carradine couldn't.
Nah.
Did you hear what? In fact, did you hear what Chuck Norris said about David Carradine?
No, what did he say?
He said, "My acting is about as good as David Carradine's martial arts," which I always kind of liked.
I kind of appreciate that.
I mean, he's very sort of like kind of like a little bit too conservative Christian, but like, that tickled me.
That's Chuck Norris for you. But yeah, like there's a lot in this. I think Brandon Lee. I think one of the best things in this, is the chemistry between Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee. I think. Yeah, and I think without that, you've not got much of a film.
And that's something that like quite a lot of YouTube criticism was kind of dismissive of, but I think they're great together. And there's because there are so many lines that would have been absolute clunkers in the hands of lesser actors.
Yeah.
And we were saying before, like, it's really weird how you've got two guys who are both very cerebral, kind of sensitive actors. You've got one who's got like a master's degree on biochemistry, and the other who like wanted to be a serious actor, and who only sort of he kind of snubbed his nose at action films a little bit, and only really he finally got to the point where he was like, okay, I'll do some action films to establish myself and then make the transition into serious acting. And obviously, as soon as he did that with The Crow, he didn't get to do any more, and it's horrible.
But you can see his charisma there,
so much
charisma, and he just lights up the screen. Obviously, Dolph Lundgren is playing to type what he usually plays, the stoic kind of, hard, cold, tough guy, and Brandon Lee's just so good at this. He steals the show, I think, Brandon Lee, more so than Dolph Lundgren, but I don't think Dolph Lundgren does a bad job. I think he just matches what he needs to do.
They kind of Gary Stew Dolph Lundgren a little bit because he is amazing at everything.
Yeah.
And he can jump clean over a moving car.
Karate kick it right across it.
He can like bend steel with his bare legs.
Like lift a car.
Yeah. So that's the power of
Dolph.
That's the power of the caucus, right?
Do you have a favorite action scene? Because it's chock full of action scenes.
Ooh,
and it's like every 5 minutes there's pretty much an action sequence. Do you have a particular favorite? Is it like the bathhouse? Is it?
I do like the bathhouse. There's a bit in the there's a bit that I really like in the. There's a scene where they go into the club and everyone's eating sushi off the naked women, and they get accosted by Yakuza again. And there's a bit where he distracts the guys by throwing change in their face.
Yeah,
I really like that. And then he just jumps on the table and does a backward somersault off it, which is slightly less like congruous. But I really like that fight, and I really like the fight with the guy who plays Tatsu in Ninja Turtles, where he says you have the right to be dead, and drops the lighter into the flammable liquid. It's all good.
It's all.
Do you know
good
what?
fun.
It's revisiting it. The sword fight at the end is more visceral and visually interesting than I remember it being as well.
Yeah, I love every cut. You feel like every cut.
Oh yeah,
that Dolph Lundgren gets. Like, he's already been shot, by the way, at this point, and he's like, "You don't have the honor to fight like a real man."
Oh yeah, that's it. Where he's pointing a gun right at the the criminal who's been caught in many acts of crime. and Chris Kenner is just like, no, don't shoot him. That's not the honourable way. I've got to go and find a sword and confront him that way. And it's like. Again, I imagine I've never worked in the police service, but
No.
I imagine it's not procedurally accurate. That
Probably not. Yeah, I don't think many police go up to someone with a katana and start slicing and dicing.
but they're just not as Japanese as Dolph Lundgren. So
I mean, that's
how are we meant to know?
I mean, who is as Japanese as Dolph
literally
Lundgren?
nobody.
Nobody. This film proves it, apparently. But yeah, I mean, there's the shootout where he saves Tia Carrera's character, which I think is pretty good.
Yes.
He goes into the house and
Yeah,
flips the
and
car.
that was something that I forgot. I forgot how good the gunplay section was because I was all about the martial arts when I was a kid. I forgot how good the actual gunfights were.
He's got this massive Desert Eagle as well, hasn't he?
Oh my fuck! And there's a bit where he just walks straight through a window.
Yeah.
Doesn't even. Bitch, he doesn't even build up any momentum. He just walks right through that shit. And I will forever love Dolph Lundgren.
He's genius. He's absolutely genius. Mark Lester, who was the director,
Release the Lester cut.
Release the Lester cut. Hashtag release the Lester cut. He was not happy with what Warner Bros. Did. Like, he basically says that the film was taken off him.
Yeah.
And it was edited and cut. Again, like we said, it's barely feature length. Like that's close to the length of like an animated movie, more so than a like theatrical release.
Although, not that I'm advocating cutting a director's work to ribbons, because obviously I'm a Zack Snyder's Justice League fan.
Absolutely. 4 hours.
4 very happy hours for me.
50% of them were in slow motion, but
I'll take. Do you know what? I'll take all of it. All of that slow motion is absolutely crucial to the atmosphere,
to the
of
narrative.
film.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. No, that's a whole other kettle of worms.
Oh shit!
And I'm just
shit!
gonna go off on a very brief Dan tangent.
Here we go.
This whole this whole arm of YouTube criticism where if it doesn't directly contribute to the plot, it's extraneous. I have fundamental disagreements about that, frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, as much as I object to the fact that a director's work got taken off them and it was cut to ribbons, I'm also kind of impressed at how well it functions in spite of that.
Yeah, I agree.
And how much it manages to get done in so little time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is due to the chemistry between the actors.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said for kind of narrative equity, I will call it. I think
Economy.
Economy more. That's probably the better word. Kind of narrative economy and the brevity of it and the speed of everything, because it never really stops for a moment.
No,
like you're always. No, I'm never at a point in this film where I'm bored. Like
no,
like I'd argue it's not a great film, but it's not a poor film either. It's a fun, dumb action film, and it hits all the beats you want it to hit. It does all the things you want it to do. It has the bromance, it has the romance, it has the action, it has the revenge story. You've got because Yoshida has killed Kenna's parents.
For
some reason
he was raised in Japan. He's not randomly massively into Japanese stuff.
It's not like most of the kind of the weeaboos or whatever you call them nowadays.
Weeaboos. What's a weeaboo?
I think it's like a anime thing. I think it's like people that like anime.
It sounds like a virtual pet.
You know what? I might Google it.
Keyring.
I'm going to Google this as well, because every time I go to a convention, every time I go to a Comic-Con or something, somebody mentions like a Japanese phrase, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. And I have to look it up.
A weeaboo sounds like something that's happened when I've had too much curry, like on a Friday night, and I've got to go for a run on the Saturday.
I was right. No, I was right. A weeaboo is someone who is obsessed with Japanese culture or anime.
Fair enough.
There we go. Weeaboo. So I'm teaching people linguistics.
So he's not a weeaboo.
No,
he's just an incredibly white Japanese man.
Yeah, he just like. There's a photo as well. You notice when he's like training and doing all of his stuff, his samurai stuff, and one of all the photos of his family until you get to the left hand side. It's just him in a Japanese orphanage by himself.
Oh,
it's really quite sad, really quite tragic, and it's just like, and obviously those are his like fondest memories. And obviously scars Yoshida as well when he. somehow he survived. It's very briefly shown how he manages to cut him, and then I don't know, somehow escape Yoshida because it isn't really shown. But I guess he was like, "Oh, you cut my face. Next time, I'll get you next time. Next time, baby. Next time."
If only they had guns in the 70s.
Yeah. Exactly, like how old is Yoshida in this? Because Dolph is like, he must be like, he looks like he's in his 30s.
Yeah, like late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah,
I said, yeah.
And you think it, and like, you know, unless Yoshida's aged very well.
Doesn't he say like, "Oh, I picked up my father's sword," and it's like, "What? You didn't have a gun? What?"
It would have been an Uzi.
Carried a sword around? Was this normal?
I picked it up, and this is what. And then I moved to LA for some reason in particular. I could have stayed in Japan and be very happy, but LA called.
I mean, when LA calls, you've got to accept the charges. I kind of appreciate how little it takes itself seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the nature of 21st century criticism is we take things that don't take themselves seriously and apply a filter of serious logic to them.
Yeah, true. That's
part
true.
of the fun. But we it all comes from a place of love because
absolutely.
As preposterous as it is, it's a film that I really, really loved growing up and that I think holds up surprisingly well. In some ways.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
The cultural insensitivity is obviously an issue, and there are a few things that... And I must admit, I noticed this when I was a kid. The main bad guy, Yoshida, he's crushing the nightclub owner in his car. And it cuts from an actual guy sitting in a car crushing machine to a completely static and lifeless dummy in a car crushing machine. Back to the live guy and it's just totally because they haven't even started crushing the car yet. No. There's no reason why the guy can't be in there, but it's very, very conspicuously and very, very clearly a dummy that's just not moving at all, despite the character talking in a very animated way on the soundtrack.
He's screaming and everything.
Oh, it's brilliant. But they used the back of Tatsu from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' head to obscure that in the wide shot.
I do want to talk about Yoshida as a villain because I think he's great in this. I think he's this ruthless, horrific, very sexually aggressive, dark, disturbing. Like every scene he's in, and Shang Tsung, as we'll call him. Is fantastic in it. He's brilliant. He's those eyes and the take a drink every time Yoshida gets his shirt ripped off to show off his tattoos because
that's very impressive work. I'm not surprised they wanted to showcase it, but he's very much a paragon of this sort of. Villains don't need to be sympathetic. Not every villain has to be Thanos,
or Magneto.
I don't necessarily want to. It's nice to have that flavor of villain, but every now and then I just want to have someone who's a bit of a shit,
a real bastard.
Yeah, a real bastard, and who enjoys being a real shit, and who has no real nuance to their personality.
No relatability.
Yeah, because there are people like that, and they have their goals, as this character clearly does, and they have things they want, and they're completely self-interested, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine to have that. And again, that's another thing that's kind of arisen of late when villains don't have a compelling backstory or a point of empathy. We call it lazy, and I just think that's a bit disingenuous.
No, I think you need like look at everyone loves the Emperor from Star Wars, and we know fuck all about him.
Yeah,
even though he's just an evil wizard bastard.
Wizard bastard.
Yeah, that's it. That's how I'd describe him. Evil wizard bastard. Good. He's been used and reused. He's appeared in every single fucking Star Wars trilogy, all of them.
Yeah.
In some form because he's that evil and good a villain that you don't need to know the rest. You don't.
And I quite admire that even though they gave him backstory in the prequels, they didn't make him at all empathetic.
No.
They just added context.
They were just like, he's a politician. He's not empathetic at all. But even then, he's really old. Like, obviously, the actor has aged. You know what I mean, though? You don't get, like, the young emperor. You don't get the young, his or what it was like to become the emperor or anything like that. You just get, he's older there and he's slightly older in the next
Give
one.
it 5 years, Disney Plus will have an exclusive
No, don't do it.
Palpatine miniseries.
Yeah. I said this on a podcast recently that is yet to be released, but there's something about giving too much of the backstory of a character and ruining that mystique. Yeah. I remember we talked about it on your podcast on Nerdify about, like, when First Class took Mystique and gave her that, she was the sister of Xavier and all that sort of stuff.
You ruined Mystique's Mystique.
Absolutely. You quoted me exactly. And there's something to that. And I'm glad that we don't get too much of a backstory for Yoshida because, I would like maybe a little bit more like, why was he killing his parents? And, maybe something like that. Maybe give it a reason, or maybe how he got away, how Kenner got away in that situation. It doesn't rob the film of anything.
No, it doesn't.
It's still all good. It's still good, and he's got these really like every scene that Yoshida is in is kind of disturbing in some form.
Yeah,
he's either assaulting a woman, raping a woman, cutting their heads off. He's cutting a guy's arm off, or he's trying to kill Kenner or Johnny within the scene, and I think he's just got this confidence. It's almost like he's on the outside he's this cold, like, hard kind of katana steel, but inside he's just almost like a dragon, just full of rage and fire, and it's just breaking on that layer of skin, just wanting to burst out. But he's like, no, I know what I'm doing. And then only until, like, the end, when he's, like, absolutely panics and he's like, yeah, get my sword out.
Yeah, I do get that, yeah.
But yeah, I think he's great. And again, the scene where he makes one of his henchmen, obviously Kenner breaks in and saves Tia Carrera, who's about to commit seppuku on herself and commit ritualistic suicide, as described by Kenner in the film, because he knows about Japanese culture. So he explains every little thing in the film. And he rescues her, stops her from doing it. And then his henchman's like, yeah, I'm really sorry. And then we've talked about this before in the previous podcast about the Yubitsume, where they cut off the little finger. And he does that for Yoshida, his henchman. And then Yoshida's like, that's not really enough. Yeah! Stabs him to death.
I love that he folds it up into a napkin and then offers it to him like it's a little sort of, a little comestible snack.
Yeah, and he folds it as well. Folds it really nicely. It's like in Battles Without Honor and Humanity, which we did in this month as well. It was like when he cut the finger off, he was like, yeah, like running everywhere, blood going everywhere. And this, it was just like, and that's it.
I remember being incredibly, like, impressed by his restraint in that scene. And there's also a bit where they've got the Yakuza guy in custody at the start of the film, and he breaks his own neck.
Yeah,
which I don't know to this day if that's physically possible. I know they did the whole, like, Frank Miller Joker thing where he, like, twists his own neck till it breaks.
I mean, that's not happened to me yet, so
no.
I'll keep trying.
Have you ever been to see a chiropractor?
No, probably I should, I think.
Mate, when they do that shit to you, they, like, grab your head and then they twist it, and like, I genuinely, I went to see one because I injured myself doing martial arts, actually.
Oh, wow.
I was way too old, basically. I tried to get into it, back into it in my early 30s, and no, too old.
Not having it.
Too old.
No.
You can't do it. It's
got to be a life of training, I guess.
When you're 31, there's these, like, 19-year-old guys in peak fitness. I basically got punched right on the jaw, and my vertebrae just went pop, 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 all the way down. Oh, mate, it was agonising. So,
horrible.
I need to see a chiropractor, and he basically just, like... and I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm not. Okay.
On one, I think the first podcast I did with Angry Andy Reviews, we talked about a moment where he used to come in and ritualistically kill everyone, as like throw grenades at you and the guns would go off. Obviously in pretend. It's all acting. It's all acting.
Like in Spaced.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh yeah,
like that. that was his thing. And he grabbed my neck and was like, and just went with it, like to pretend, but actually my neck cracked very loudly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think you've broken my neck. And I'm looking at him like, I think you've killed me. And he's looking at me like, I think I've killed you.
You need to be nice to your neck.
Yeah, I should be nicer to...
Unless you're a qualified chiropractor.
Also, clearly, I should be nicer to Andy, so he doesn't break my neck. Because it's definitely within his wheelhouse. It's definitely something he could do.
At least you found something he likes.
Good point. Yeah, he doesn't like a lot of things, but it's very, very few and far
between. Mates, all good.
His friends are good. He's good. He's a big softie. Really. But I have a lot of fun with this film. I think it would make a really good. Speaking of Angry Andy, I think it would make a really good double bill with the film we covered over Christmas, I Come in Peace. Which was Dolph Lundgren with a partner he doesn't get on with because he's a bit too straight-laced, and then there's a predator-like alien that they have to fight who's trying to sample an exclusive bit of drugs from human beings.
How normal.
Yeah. It's
What's
one of those
predator-like alien like?
He's much like Dolph Lundgren, he's European and massive.
Okay.
And a martial artist.
Okay. So it's not like a Macamee kind of...
No. No, he looks human. He's just got this big like white hair, and he's got this kind of like... Because I think he's after endorphins, so they take the drugs, and then he injects them with drugs, that's it. And then harvest their endorphins, because that's a better drug.
Okay.
Intergalactically. So yeah, it's you should check that podcast out, check that film out.
I should. I'll take your We Come in Peace, and I'll raise you a Rapid Fire, which is an excellent Brandon Lee film, and it's got Powers Booth being his Powers Boothiest.
Oh yeah, I do like a bit of Powers
with
Booth.
all of his Powers Booth sincerity.
He has the power.
Yeah, it's really good, and I don't know how ironically I mean that, because I haven't seen it since I was 16. But so
it'll be great. It'll be great.
The fight choreography in that is, I'd say, even better than the fight choreography in Showdown in Little Tokyo.
What did you think of the fight choreography? Because again, we were watching a bit of YouTube, and they were quite critical of the fight choreography. What do you think?
I mean, at the time, I really liked it. Obviously, like it depends what you go. If you're going for grounded realism, that is total bollocks. Because
absolute bullshit.
You wouldn't open a fight by doing a backflip. But it was flashy and very, very 90s in its sort of ostentatiousness. And I think there's a really good juxtaposition because obviously I think Dolph Lundgren was a karate guy.
Yeah, I think so.
So obviously everything he does is very stiff and very linear, whereas Brandon was obviously from a Chinese martial arts background.
Be like water.
Yeah. So he's much more fluid and kind of agile. So he does a little bit of a screamer, I believe, as well with the sticks. I really liked it. I thought it was cool, and it was it was. Sorry, it's good. It's good.
Yeah,
basically,
it is good. And I think it's one of the few films that we have of Brandon Lee. Obviously, tragically,
yes,
the late Brandon Lee. I'm a massive fan of The Crow. I love The Crow, and also its sequel, Daredevil, by Mark Steven Johnson, which is blatant rip-off of The Crow, if you've ever seen it, but I still kind of like it.
Have you seen any of the sequels?
I saw City of Angels, and I thought it was dreadful because it was cut to pieces.
But again, there's a good film in there trying to get out.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Trying to muscle its way past Iggy Pop.
Yeah, and David Goya's script. It's not the best David Goya script.
David Goya?
It is a David Goya. It's one of his earliest comic book attempts.
Okay.
Not as successful as most of them, but and I think there's something to it. There's definitely something there, but again, like you said, it was ruined and cut, and I can't say I've watched. I want to say, did I watch the third one or fourth one or fifth one? I didn't see the Edward Furlong one.
Because that one was meant to be really good. Yeah. Kirsten Dunst was in it as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, and then one of them was the guy from Nip Tuck, I think.
Okay.
I think one of them, he was the Crow. I've read a lot of the comic book sequels and by James O'Barr, who is he's great. And I like that every story has a different person as the Crow. Effectively, well, not the Crow, but the person the Crow resurrects. Technically. So there was one
like Shazam.
Kind of, sort of thing. And I like the one where there was one set in like Auschwitz, which I thought was really cool.
That is cool.
And then there was one where it was a little girl who'd been murdered, and she came back. She was trying to get this police officer to basically solve the murder.
That's awesome.
Which I thought, again, it's like a different take, and that's what the brilliant thing about The Crow is. You can do that. Unfortunately, the films just haven't nailed that, and they seem to be, for some reason, determined to get a Crow movie out. For God help them, like Jason Momoa.
As much as I love Jason Momoa,
no, it's not.
I adore Jason Momoa, and he is a force of nature, and he just seems to be the most lovable dude on the planet. But no, that's just,
he doesn't come across as like the Grim Reaper, and I think you've got to have that kind of aspect of, like, don't get me wrong, like Brandon Lee is ripped, but I still got a sense that he could be underneath that big jacket, could be very like withered and like skeletal.
I think he's got that kind of rock star vibe, which I think was what they probably saw in him. Which makes sense, but like, I just don't think he has the right set of attributes for Eric Draven. If we're going with the Eric Draven,
the Eric Draven rockstar kind of goth thing going on. I did hear that the TV show The Crow
with Mark Dacascos. That was I saw the pilot, and it was actually really good.
I love him because like you're a big fan of Crying Freeman,
yes,
which I really like as well.
And he looks quite a lot like Brandon as well, like, or he did like when he was younger.
Of course. And I think it was called Stairway to Heaven, I want to say.
Yes, it was.
And I've heard that's really good.
It is good,
the show itself. And did it have a season? Was it like a series or?
I only saw the pilot because this was back in the day when you just saw that shit on video, where they cobble 2 episodes together and call it a film and then put it on VHS.
Yeah, I remember those days.
But it's interesting we bring up The Crow because the whole thing. Because originally this sat on a shelf for quite some time, and it was only when The Crow happened and Brandon Lee died, and fans who were attracted to Brandon Lee through his performance in that film were kind of like, well, what else has he done? Were interested in his back catalogue, and so they kind of put this out on VHS, and that's where it found its audience, because it didn't find a big audience theatrically. And that's exactly how I found the film. I remember very vividly being sort of like 14, 15, and because The Crow is so shadowy in its cinematography, and he's wearing makeup all the time, I was like, I don't actually know what this dude looks like. Yeah. So I remember like trying to find his old films, because I was like, I really want to know like what this guy looks like, because I've not actually seen his face. So I found Rapid Fire just happened to be on TV, and I recorded that, and then that was my sort of like bread and butter. Whenever I had a few minutes, I'd watch the fight scenes out of that film, and then I just happened upon Showdown in Little Tokyo. And that's how my love affair with the film started.
Well, I mean, it sounds like he has a kind of a really decent trilogy with this, Rapid Fire, and The Crow. Like, if you want to do a Brandon Lee binge, it sounds like that's the way you go, and that's the order you're going.
That's how you Brandon binge, yeah.
That's how you Brandon binge. But yeah, I think he's an excellent entertainer. It's a real shame that he's not around anymore. But the stuff he did create and the stuff he has is excellent. Like you said, I've not seen Rapid Fire, so I can't say, but I like Showdown.
I think it's right in your wheelhouse. It's very much in the Secret Boars kind of wheelhouse.
Excellent. Well, I mean, who knows?
Powers Booth's in it. What more do you want?
That's it. That's all I want in a film, is just more Powers Booth, more powers to him. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a contender. We can definitely come back and have a look at Rapid Fire, or even Crying Freeman if you wanted, with something. In the pipeline, we could do something like that.
Yeah. Oh, mate, Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Oh, good shout.
From the director of Crying Freeman, because that's got so many different influences, from sort of German expressionism to Silent Hill to martial and
Native American.
Christoph Gans actually did end up directing the Silent Hill film.
It's got what's his name? The evil French guy's in Evil in Everything. What's his name? Vincent
Cassel.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Black Swan. That's him. Yeah, he's just evil in everything, because that's just how he looks.
Have you seen Irreversible?
No, and part of me doesn't want to see that film.
You do though. Like
Do
it's not an easy watch,
No.
but it's definitely you'll be glad you saw it.
Yeah.
I think it's an important watch.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of those. I think that's one of those films where I'm like, I've got to have a good mental health day before I tackle maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But I've heard very, very good things. But also I hear like, oh my God, have you seen it? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So part of me is like, yeah, okay, maybe on the right day, or if I go, it was like, I remember when it was like I watched Kevin Bacon's The Woodsman.
Yeah.
That's very much not a film you put on a Sunday night or something. That's something you've got to really be ready for.
It's horrible things are horrible things and need to be showcased as the horrible things they are.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there is a catharsis in being confronted with them.
Yeah. And it's good that you recognise that they're horrible things, or you may in fact be a horrible person.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity in that.
But yeah, I think this film is good. I think it's fun. If you like 90s action, if you like Dolph Lundgren, if you like Brandon Lee, I think there's a lot to find here. There's a lot to enjoy. Again, it doesn't stick around that long, so even if you're not a massive fan, it's already over before you've even considered it. I did want to bring up one of my other favourite lines in the film. Again, this film is very quotable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All the kind of and like you said, the lines aren't necessarily the best, but the actors make use of
sure.
them.
Yeah.
And they kind of use them in the best way. But my favourite line is initially where he saves Tia Carrera, the gorgeous Tia Carrera.
I know where you're going. Yeah.
And he's like, he puts her in his house and he's like, shoot anything that moves. And she's like, what if it's you? And he's like, you'll never see me coming. And then much later in the film, there's a lot of gratuitous nudity in this film as well.
There is.
Like we were saying, there was a lot of, in fact, so much so that one of the original screenwriters called the film misogynistic.
Okay.
Yeah, he felt that they'd taken the idea and put a lot of nude ladies on it, and the ideas and the way the characters acted were misogynistic. But I'm not sure if I agree with that. But that's his interpretation. But
yeah, I think it's a valid reading.
yeah, I can see what he means. But it's,
As much as I'm defending this film,
as much as we like this
I
film,
think there's grounds to.
oh yeah, well we've said it's problematic.
Yeah.
In several ways, and that is included in that. Again, they kind of gingerly make this love story happen between Tia Carrera, who's the singer who was working with the girl who got killed, and then she's attacked by Yoshida, and then he saves her. But yeah, so in the end, they kind of end up in a hot tub together, and then later they have sex, and the line she just comes in like this lovely little reprise. She goes, "I saw you coming."
Yeah.
And that's and it's kind of like sweet and disgusting and brilliant all at the same time.
It's another line that I really like where he does the best job of mansplaining a gun. You point this in the direction that things are, you pull the trigger, they fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it? Got
Yeah.
it? You got it? Is that easy for you?
Wow, thank goodness you were here to explain it to me, big
Thank
strong
you.
white man.
Yes. I don't know how things work. Yeah. But I think it's a fun film. I think if you're looking for a fun film, this is one. Again, don't go in expecting it to be the wokest of films you've ever seen.
No.
But I think
Or the most nuanced. Although I think there is more to. I think looking back at it, there's more to Dolph Lundgren's performance going on than you'd initially think. Really, because he isn't just this like big blonde muscular guy that you just point and shoot. I think there is. He was making choices there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think he's an actor.
Yeah.
He's working with what he's got, and what he's got is massive. The biggest dick you've ever seen on the man, the biggest muscles you've ever seen on a man. It's a blast. If you're looking for that kind of thing, if you're looking for kind of no holds barred kind of action movie, and it really is no holds barred. There's, like we said, blood, gore, bits and pieces falling off people exploding, massively exploding, people being crushed in cars but not really being crushed in cars.
No.
That's another thing. They were like, there's 2 or 3 occasions where again, it's just, I guess it's the trope, isn't it? The villain goes, "I'm going to walk away, but I'm sure you're dead."
Yeah.
You're definitely dead, even though I'm walking away and looking in the other direction.
At least he videos them being tortured, though, and he's like, right, I'm going to go and watch this in my car somehow.
Yeah.
I still don't know how they managed to broadcast that and receive it in the car.
That's just a massive aerial. Just big fuck off sky aerial.
So obviously this is pre-internet, so...
And I mean, that must be using a lot of electricity just to shock them as well.
Yeah.
Because they're really like...
Oh, I wouldn't want to see his belt. But everything was cheaper then, Dan.
Yeah,
everything was cheaper in 1991.
Car batteries. Maybe that was it. Maybe it's two separate car batteries just hooking him up. But I do love how they escape that way. It just breaks his restraints and then pushes him against Brandon Lee.
Oh,
to
what are we going to do?
electrocution.
I'll just pull my hand out.
Yeah.
Oh, this is actually quite easy. I'll just... Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, let's just do that.
I forgot I had superhuman strength.
But yeah, it's fun. It's a fun film, and I think it's a nice way to kind of cap off Yakuza Month, because we've looked at the origins, we've looked at kind of comics, we've looked at all the ritualistic stuff, the history of the Yakuza and the Japanese culture, and I've really enjoyed this year, like looking at kind of Japanese cinema and all that sort of stuff, and I've learned quite a lot, and I hope a lot of people have learned a lot from this as well.
It's kind of ironic this is coming right at the end, because it's actually would serve as a pretty good entry point into more serious.
Yeah, like Yakuza stuff. Yeah, I kind of it's just the way it's fallen, unfortunately. But that is the way it is. But it's definitely like, considering what I've already looked at, and there's been like really manic stuff. There's been like really depressing stuff. There's been, comic books as well, and the kind of view on that, and then the kind of the female perspective of the Yakuza. So this is almost like it's a nice mix of stuff. I always like a bit of variety when I kind of compile these months, and luckily, like most of you guys are like really up for whatever I pick. But this was all yours. This was all your choice, and I was well up for it when you said it. I was like, yes.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I forgot how much I enjoyed this film. Yeah, and it's been really nice to revisit. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been an absolute blast. So Dan, you are on the social medias. I know you are.
I am, for my sins.
For your sins, as much as you like and or loathe the social media, much like I. Where can people find you if they want to hear your opinions?
You can find me on Twitter at DLKeatis. You can also find me on Instagram under the same although I'm just posting pictures of my hot toys,
which is good shit, though. It's good shit.
By all means, come and say hello. I do try and be nice.
Yes,
because I think on Twitter, especially, it is important to be nice and receptive to people, and not a dick, which is the antithesis of what I think the platform is engineered to make you into.
Well, again, like I said, I keep my Twitter circle very small. I keep it within this kind of really nice podcast community of people supporting people and respecting each other. And there's I can't remember a moment where everyone's gone, well, he's a complete dick, or I disagree with him entirely. Like no one's had a really harsh opinion. Everyone has opinions, but again, we don't attack each other because of those opinions either.
Yeah.
It's everyone's got a credible opinion. You might not necessarily agree with it, but it's there.
Keep your circle small, because it's like living in the city with rats. You're never more than 20 megabytes away from a raving transphobe or racist.
Absolutely, 100%. And you will find that. And I was thinking the other day, I'm thinking, what's probably the more toxic fandom? Is it the Spider-Man fandom, or is it the Star Wars fandom? I'm not entirely sure.
I think rather than debate that, I think you just got to look for the best of both.
Yes.
As a DC fan, I feel I'm uniquely qualified to say that you've just got to look for the best in as you say, keep your circle small, keep it carefully curated. And one bit of advice I would give is, if someone disagrees with you, you're not going to change their mind on Twitter.
No, absolutely.
No one ever went, you know what, I'm going to have a think about what I said, because you're right.
Yeah, it's not really the platform.
I'm going to rethink my prejudices and preconceptions. Said no one on Twitter. Ever.
Totally. And again, totally anonymous people have gone, totally going to change my mind now.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to come back in a new persona. Yes, totally not on the space for that. But you can find me on Facebook. It's at Secret Bores. Twitter, it's Dan @Dan_Bores. on Instagram. It's at SpiderDanSecretBalls. And don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle when you interact with us. For everything else you need to know about the podcast, swing over to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls on the World Wide Web. And I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. I am Jack's Musings, Paul Meller, Max Byrne, Tony Farina, and Scott Hodgson for their continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. Dan, it's been amazing to have you back on. Again, old podcast buddies from back in the day.
It is a pleasure to return to Prattle World.
Always. And it's nice to remember those Nerdified days as well.
It is.
They were great.
Really
they were really good. And it's it's a shame we don't have that anymore. But at least we've still got something here. We've got a little sliver of it.
I'm sure at some point we could hog tie Josh and get him back for a Nerdify reunion.
Oh yeah. Well, I still think we could do our lost episode. I think.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. I'm all for that. Yeah.
We did what was it? Britcoms. Top 5 Britcoms.
Because mine might have changed.
Oh, interesting.
Since 2017.
Yes. Well, I've saved the logo for the podcast as well. So if you did want to do it, I can use.
Oh, you fucking beauty! Nice one.
I would absolutely use the logo for the lost episode. So
superb.
We can definitely do that. Even if it's on a Zoom, we can do a Zoom. We do D&D. We can do that.
Yeah.
We can organise that. So yeah, let me know. And I think we can definitely put that in somewhere down the
That'd be fab and
schedule.
groovy.
Yeah, I'm absolutely up for that. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed Yakuza Month as much as I have. I've really enjoyed it. I also really enjoyed Samurai Month. And after Yakuza Month, you're going to get directly after it finishes, you're going to get Shockphobia Fest. So all October long, you are going to podcast a week on all your favourite horror movies or underappreciated horror movies and comics. I'm sure you'll love it as well. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm almost done. I've got one more left to record, but everything else is edited, ready to go. So it's going to be very exciting. So 8 podcasts in a row. Mental.
Fuck.
One a week. That's, I've got ahead of myself somehow. I don't know how I've done it, but I managed to do it. And there's going to be much more. There's going to be a couple in November. I'm just organising now. And then we've got all of alternativity stories, all the alternative holiday season stories that we can bring out. So
Somebody's organised.
Somebody is fucking busy, I'll tell you that. But yeah, it's all ready. It's all off in the future. But yeah, it's gonna be really, really cool. And I mean, you were one of my podcast inspirations, Dan. So it's all.
Oh, thank you.
Part of that is down to you and getting me into the old podcasting world.
That's incredibly humbling. I wish I'd prepared better. But thank you. That really means a lot.
You prepared.
It's
more than enough.
It's always wonderful when the student can surpass the master. It's been wonderful to see all the stuff you've done with this podcast and the wonderful community that you've created.
Oh man, thank you so much.
So
I really appreciate it.
Fantastic, and I look forward to being on the show again soon.
Yes, we've drunk too much beer. Can you tell? No, we're just gushing now. But thank you, guys. It's been great. I hope you enjoyed it. We've got a lot of stuff coming up next year and this year already. So, yeah, keep tuned. Stay tuned, more like. Keep tuned? Keep your guitars tuned. But, yeah, again, we've been drinking. It's fine. It's what we do sometimes in a healthy way. Goodbye.
Bye.